All right, fellow UPSC aspirants, ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling a topic that pops up in current affairs all the time, and it's one you might just see on those mains and prelims exams, the huge backlog of cases in India's courts.
You got it. A crucial issue, and not just for law, but for governance and social justice, too.
We're pulling our insights from some recent articles in the Hindu,
Make sure you check those out.
definitely for some extra context. To really grasp how serious this is, let's start with the sheer numbers. The Supreme Court alone has 82,000 cases just waiting.
82,000. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Think high courts and lower courts, and it's over 5 crore cases. 5 crore. It's mind-boggling, the impact on people's lives. Businesses stuck, justice delayed. It's a problem, no doubt about it.
Right, it's easy to get lost in the numbers, but we can't forget that each case represents real people waiting for some kind of resolution. The articles point to a few reasons for this backlog, and one that caught my eye was what they call this excessive litigation culture.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point. Access to justice is vital. But the articles argue that in India, we maybe go to court a little too quickly, even for minor disagreements, compared to some other countries anyway, where out-of-court settlements are more common.
So instead of finding a compromise, people are heading straight to court,
Yeah.
which of course adds to this already massive pile of cases. I found it fascinating how the articles link this tendency to India's history and social context too.
Definitely a key point. They talk about the impact of colonialism, the fact that we have so many different personal laws, and even just the general perception of the judiciary as the main place to go for any grievance. It's complex, no easy answers here.
Not at all. And then you've got another big issue, the low judge-to-population ratio. India only has 21 judges per million people.
It's a stark contrast, right? The US has 107, the UK 51, that's what the articles say, and it highlights how short-staffed our judicial system is. It puts a huge strain on everything.
Yeah, it's clear that we need more judges, but that alone won't solve the problem. The articles also point to problems with infrastructure and procedures.
Exactly. Outdated systems, everything's on paper, the procedures themselves are really complex. All of that just creates more delays. You can imagine the frustration.
Absolutely. It's a recipe for people losing faith in the system. The articles also touch on how some people are using interim applications strategically and often to delay things even further.
Yeah, those applications have their uses, but they can be exploited, no question. And that just stretches things out even more. It's like all these factors are feeding into each other.
For sure. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about potential solutions. One that stood out to me was this idea of mediation. Basically, it's about resolving disputes outside of the courtroom.
Exactly. It's gaining traction as a way to take some of the pressure off the courts. And who knows, maybe it's even a better way to handle certain types of disputes.
Sounds promising. But how does it actually work? What are its strengths and weaknesses? And can it really work in India? We'll delve into all of that after the break.
So, mediation. It's a pretty different way of approaching these disputes. Instead of going head-to-head in court, the parties sit down with someone neutral, a mediator, and try to work things out together.
It sounds a lot less, well, adversarial. The articles mention that it's been successful in various types of cases like civil disputes, commercial disagreements, even family issues. What makes it so effective?
I think it's the change in mindset. Instead of this I win, you lose mentality you get in court, mediation is all about collaboration and finding a solution that works for everyone.
I can see how that would be more satisfying in the end. You don't end up with one side feeling defeated, even if they technically won the case. The articles also talk about how mediation can be much faster and cheaper than traditional litigation.
Oh, absolutely. Time is money, and these legal battles can drag on forever, costing everyone a fortune. Mediation streamlines the process, and that benefits everyone, even the courts themselves.
Right, because if more cases are resolved through mediation, that frees up the courts to focus on the really complex ones. It's like tackling the backlog from both ends.
Exactly. But there's a catch, and the articles are pretty clear about this. For mediation to really work in India, we need the right kind of support system in place. We need qualified mediators, and we need them to be accessible all over the country, not just in big cities.
So making sure people are aware of mediation as an option and making it easy for them to access those services, even in rural areas, is key. The articles talked a lot about changing public perception.
Yeah, because there might be some skepticism, right? People might think it's not as serious as going to court, or that it won't have the same legal weight. We need to address those concerns.
The article suggests that legal education should include mediation, and that government agencies and businesses should be encouraged to use it too.
That would be a huge step, right? Imagine if lawyers always brought up mediation before heading to court, or if the government used it to resolve their own disputes. It could really change things.
It's like creating a culture where mediation is the norm, not the exception. But how do we make sure it's fair? What's stopping the more powerful side from taking advantage of the situation?
It's a valid concern, for sure. The articles stress the importance of having clear ethical guidelines for mediators and mechanisms to deal with those power imbalances. The mediator's role is so crucial.
They need to be able to facilitate a genuine conversation, make sure everyone has their say, and guide everyone towards a solution, all while staying neutral. That's a tough job.
It really is. And that's why training and accreditation are so important for mediators. The articles even mention using technology to make mediation more accessible.
That's an interesting idea. Could we use online platforms to make it even more convenient and affordable?
It's definitely a possibility, especially now with so much of India connected digitally. But we have to make sure everyone can participate, even those who might not have easy access to technology.
This brings us to a really important question for our listeners preparing for the UPSC exams. What are the broader implications of promoting mediation in India?
It goes beyond just clearing the backlog, right? It's about good governance, access to justice, creating a more harmonious society, all those themes you'll see in the UPSC syllabus.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, talking about India's judicial backlog and this idea of mediation as a potential solution. It really does touch on so many aspects of Indian society.
Yeah, it's a great example of how these different issues, the law, how the government works, social justice, even technology, all tie together.
It's all about seeing those connections, that bigger picture. And we've talked about the numbers, the processes, but at the end of the day, this is really about people.
Right, the people stuck waiting for their cases to be resolved, the people looking for a fair outcome, and the people who might actually find a more, I don't know, humane approach in mediation.
And that's where mediation really stands out because it gives people a voice. Yeah. It lets them be part of the solution to their own conflicts. And that fits in with what the UPSC talks about, that focus on inclusive development and making the government work for the people.
It's like moving away from just the legal side of things and considering the social and emotional aspects too. The articles even mention looking at some of the traditional ways of resolving disputes that have been used in India for a long time.
That's interesting, isn't it? Using those traditional practices alongside our modern legal system, it shows that we need to be creative to find solutions that work within our own context.
And that's what this deep dive is all about, getting you thinking, getting you to look beyond the surface. What other solutions can we come up with? How can technology help make justice more accessible?
Those are the kinds of questions that will help you with the UPSC exams, but they'll also make you a more informed citizen. And remember, all of this is from those recent articles in the Hindu.
Make sure to check those out if you want to go deeper. And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring these issues, keep learning, and form your own opinions.
Let us know what you think in the comments. Can mediation really change India's legal system? What other reforms do we need to make sure everyone has access to justice?
We'd love to hear from you. And if you found this deep dive helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next discussion.
Keep learning, keep those brains working, and we'll see you next time.